Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Jackie B, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in tonight while I discuss the path to doctorate. If you're interested in earning a terminal degree, I'd like to share with you my process and yours. Each journey will be different. I can guarantee you that. And this is how we're going to proceed tonight. We're going to skip over the greetings and introductions. I think you're all familiar with one another, and certainly sent you enough information about me beforehand. So, as an overview, we're just going to talk about my journey, how I went from just having a master's, from a bachelor's and master's, to eventually making a decision to go ahead and make the leap to get my master's, my doctorate, and why I even chose education. I'm going to go through the process, and I have 5 chapters because by the time you finish 5, which is typically what most universities ask for, some have 7, depends on what school that you add in terms of what's required for your dissertation work. I'm going to go through that in an overview of what's contained in those, and maybe some things I wish I had known along the way. And if there's time, either I will take your written questions and answer them, or I will do a follow up and I will do them in writing, which will also be the follow up in next steps. And if you need to do this again, then we certainly can. I don't mind helping anyone to travel this journey. So, the first question you might want to ask yourself is do I want a master's degree? Do I need a master's degree in order to get a doctorate? Or can you do both? Now, some programs are inclusive. So, when you decide on your major and whatnot, I need you to understand that there's some universities that will allow you to be accepted into the doctoral program. And once you've finished the first year of your master's, which may have its own requirement in terms of testing and exams and thesis and things. But once you finish that first year of your doctorate, then you're automatically awarded your master's degree. And then you continue on from there. Uh, However, that's not the route that I chose. I just chose the route when I started just with the doctorate, and of course they always have some required coursework, and each university is going to different. Each major is going to different. That's going to differ, but yes, you just can't walk off the street and say, well, all of a sudden I want to major in education, or all of a sudden I want to major in chemistry, and I'm never taking a class. It doesn't work like that. So you're going to have some background coursework, unless you're willing to do that as a part of your acceptance, and don't think you cannot take them. I think we have one person in our cohort. Cohort is the people that you start with, and hopefully you will also finish with. At least you will go through all of your coursework with these people, because the dissertation uh, uh, completion and publishing is a very personal journey. But the coursework and getting there, you do work with a group of people. And we did cohorts. University that you're in, they may do it differently. But most of the ones that I know about, the people that you start with, you do all your coursework with these very same people. So you get to know them pretty well. Okay. Then I talk about, my path and my decisions, and to get that terminal degree. And the first step, once I decided, was to take the GRE. And I'm going to recommend to you right now, before you take any examination, you practice. You practice, because things have changed. Because it had been forever since I have been uh, looking at some of this stuff, or been in and out of high school, and so many things have changed, even in your basic coursework. What was uh, acceptable and prevalent even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, the whole position may have changed. So, anyway, so do prepare. Don't walk off the street that you just take the GRE and get yourself a nice score. It doesn't work like that. Now, you geniuses out there, you go right ahead. But for the other 75 to 90% of us, I recommend, Holly, that you prepare. Get your test book of exams, whatever. So, of course, you have to apply to the university and go through the acceptance process. And a major part of that, will be they do require a writing sample, a true writing sample, and proof that it is your writing sample and not anyone else's that you are submitting, because they want to make sure that you're able to at least write at the graduate and or the doctoral level, because it does require its own uh, uh, sort of language and scholarly way that you approach things and in the way that you say things, and at the end of the day you may find that you need to hire yourself a writer. Okay, you may need to hire yourself a writer in order to get through your dissertation work. All 5 chapters. Okay, all 5 chapters, because there will be a lot of writing involved. A lot of writing involved. And one of the things that I early on that I wish that I had known about was I could have selected my topic before I even entered the program. I didn't know that. So it was very stunning when, professor said, well, some of you may have already selected your topic. What? So keep that in mind. And the second thing to keep in mind is to choose wisely. Pick a topic that you absolutely are passionate about, because you're going to be stuck with it. So, and if you have to start over again, look all the time you wasted, the years you put in, the terms of semesters, and now you want to start over with a new topic. So from the very beginning, when they talk about little introductory papers and they little 2 or 3 pages and 5 and 10 pages stuff, and even from the very beginning, work with the topic that you're passionate about and that you want to do your research on. I knew that, and I didn't give it much thought, but it didn't take me long to decide that I wanted to do something with parenting. As a classroom teacher, I had, it was a common theme to hear in the lounge and in the lunchroom, parents, and I decided that was my interest. That what can I do to help the parents? If you help the parents, you help the children. So that's how I got into the topic of parenting. Very general topic. Okay, and actually, I started with I wanted to do parenting education. Each chapter you develop independently of each other. So, but they're still all connected because you have the common theme of your topic. And the first topic is going to be about first chapter. But why did you even select your topic? What's the need? What's the purpose of the research? What questions are you trying to answer? Are they even relevant? Who's going to benefit? And it has to be a topic that's narrow enough that you can do the research on it, and yet broad enough that you are limited. So the way that you select your topic and frame your topic, all of those things are important. And you have professors, and as you write, go through the chapter writing, you would be going through the coursework at the same time that helps explain the methodology and the writing and all that you're doing, why you're doing. So when it comes time for you to get to your dissertation, you pretty much covered everything that you need to know in your coursework, even though you're developing each chapter independently. The first 2 years, as I said, are mostly, you're in classes together. You're working together. You see each other, and you do a lot of a supportive work. I didn't talk about how I got to Drexel, did I? When I went into teaching, originally because I was in between positions. I had worked for, I had been appointed to government position, political appointee, and all that ended. And as I was looking for positions, I noticed a lot of jobs I was interested in. Um, Wanted someone with a teaching background, someone who had experience in developing curriculum and understood the process and the teaching process and the development and course development. And so I said, well, that sounds like me. I'm an educator by nature. I'd already had 6 to 8 years of college teaching under my belt already. So I said, okay, well, I'll try classroom teaching so that I can add this to my professional resume, because I already had a master's of business administration degree. So I was trying to find something to enhance that. And then I got into teaching, classroom, K-12, and I qualified for elementary education. Before I knew it, I'm teaching mostly fourth grade. And I loved it. So I decided to stay. And then I remembered when I was at Salisbury State that the only department on campus that had 100% professors with terminal degrees was in the Department of Education. So I knew how important it was to get that terminal degree, even if I wanted to go back into teaching at the university level. And then I had made this decision along the way that, overachiever me, I decided I wanted to become a superintendent. And that, of course, I needed a doctorate degree. So I had looked around locally. I looked at, let me see if I can't, I don't think I have another slide after this. So let me just go back and I'll try to figure this out. I had looked locally at first, and looked at Johns Hopkins because I got my master's of arts in teaching from Johns Hopkins University, and of course, this is one of the top-notch universities, highly ranked, and then I okay. Then I've lost myself. Okay. And then I when I applied, I realized that they work in 3-year cohorts. So they take a cohort in every 3 years. Okay. And they had just taken one in. So this would be another 2 years before they would have another cohort. And at my age, I decided I could not wait another 2 years to start work on a doctoral degree. So, and then I really wanted to go to Morgan because I just had that desire to attend an HBCU, but I looked at the schedule and I couldn't see a pathway to completion within a 3-year time period or even a 4-year time period. So, but I really wanted that because there was an urban leadership and administration here. I was working in an urban school setting, and I really wanted that, to tell you the truth. And I should have really probably gone to university and asked more questions, and then, but I didn't do that. And I didn't do that. Instead, I after I taken my GRE, if you score high enough, you would get notifications from universities. And one of the universities that contacted me was Drexel. And I had heard of Drexel. only when I thought about getting a doctorate in business. Remember, I already had a master's in business administration, and while I was teaching at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, I thought I'd get my doctorate, so my terminal degree in business. And my department chair at that time recommended Drexel. And that's where I remember the name of Drexel. They have a pretty good completion rate. You go there, you're probably going to, complete your doctorates on time. And so that's how and why I follow through with Drexel University. Drexel, of course, the application and some references, a writing sample, and they ask for things. They also ask for statement like, "Are you doing anything that could potentially embarrass the university?" And bring any shame or anything to the department, any controversy, because if they do, they can kick you out the program. So they ask you that up front. So if you have any skeletons, you might want to think about if you want to call them into question a little bit. So, excuse me. And transcripts and proof and all of that. And, that's just typical no matter where you apply. And I'm trying to get this centered, and I can't get it quite right. Okay, maybe that's it. So, anyway, so I went to Drexel because they just had a three-year course outline that you could follow. And I could say that you could complete what they showed, that I could complete my dissertation in my doctorates, get a doctorate of education and several areas. And I chose educational leadership and administration because that's what I do. And in 3 years. And the first class is what the department chair kind of said. If you follow through with everything that we ask you to do to our standards, we could just about guarantee you that you'll get out in your 3 years. Out of state. And I thought about also that all of my training so far had been in the state of Maryland. And I thought maybe I could benefit from getting some training from another state to broaden my perspective, to broaden my horizons. So that was another reason. Now, let me tell you, I would not advise you to go out of state to get your doctor's degree unless it's a degree that you absolutely cannot get in the state of Maryland. Because the only way that you can get a senatorial scholarship and any help from the state of Maryland is that, and you don't attend a Maryland school, is that it is a unique major that you're unable to take in the state of Maryland. Then you can apply for state funding and state scholarships and senatorial scholarships, delegate scholarships, all those kinds of things, but not when you go out of state. And I think you could have done your work here in the state of Maryland. So choose wisely. So that's one thing that I will tell you about the application process. You prepare with the GRE. Stay in state if you can, but this is how I ended up at Drexel. And yeah, I did get out in 3 years and 1 term, which is like 3 years and a third, or not even a third, or fourth, because they do terms. They do 4 terms a year versus 2 semesters do 4 terms a year. So I started in September of 2011 and I finished in December of 2014. It took me 1 extra term. So 3 years and a term. And there were only two people in our class, I think, that actually finished within the 3 years. Within the 3 years. And there were some that never finished in the cohort. Just started 16 of us went through it, at least all the way up to all but dissertation. So if someone talks about there were, I did a doctorate program and I was ABD, they mean all but dissertation, I mean they never got their research approved. They did all the coursework, but they never got their research approved, so they're not a doctor. They're just not a doctor. So I'm gonna put up some pictures later of what what my finished product looks like when it's published, and the things someone has it or not, to know what to look for if it's real or fake. Because there are certain things you have to have as proof that this is actual your doctorate. First, it's going to be found only on certain websites that it's published on. So anyway. So let's start with that. So you got your topic, you're going to be writing about it, you're going to be learning about it, and then you're going to learn all about the research methodologies, and we'll get to that. Let me see, I have a little notes of 3 chapters on research. So the first chapter is always going to deal with why the topic. Is there a problem, and how, and that's all you're talking about. It's the problem. Okay. And some of the things that you're looking into, and your concerns, and the things that you hope to address with your research. And here comes, you have your major research questions. What do you hope to find with this research? What do you hope to find? All that in chapter 1. Okay, that's like one semester. I mean, another term down the road, and as you get closer and closer to actually doing your last 2 chapters, those you do independently almost. Particularly that last chapter. Those are your research findings. Then a chapter that's gonna also, when you're selecting your topic, think about the broadness of it, and hopefully your professors will help you with this, because it has to be broad enough that you have something to look into, and like I said, but narrow enough that you're not talking about the universe. So because you have to do what's called a literature review, and as a researcher, because that's what you become now, you are a researcher, you are becoming an expert on a topic, on a research topic. That's what it means to earn your doctorates. You are the expert, and no one knows more about your topic than what you do. But first, you have to look and see what work has already been done with your topic. That's chapter 2. That's your literature review. You have to do an exhaustive search to find out who are the major players in your field that you need to know about as you go about your research. And what research have they done that's generally accepted by your peers as good research? No more off-the-shelf research. Everything has to be done usually in peer review articles. If you've got your master's, what that means. Okay, you know what that means. So all peer review, so exhaustive. Because from here, you will also decide on this body of work will determine how you proceed ahead with your research. Because this is what's already out there, and then this is what you're trying to find out. And these are people that have looked at this before, and I'm going to use them for this and that and whatever. But my research is going to uncover something that maybe they have not uncovered before, whatever the topic is. So I'm doing parenting. What I'd hoped to do was to do a parenting education class, and maybe I will still do that, and as a postdoctoral work possibility, even now, where you take parents, and they had to go through at least a 3-month parenting education class in order to change everything about what they know about parenting. It's too risky. Suppose they quit, stop coming. How can I finish my research? So I still That's what my professors and I talked about, since it's too risky. So then I had to still want to do my parenting, so I had to look for another way to approach it. And so I looked at parenting. So, okay, well, what is good parenting? What's bad parenting? What's the definition of those things? What is parenting? Okay, what have people defined and accepted already? All those things. Good parenting, bad parenting. Any classifications. What's the work out there already? Okay. So exhaustive, because you have now become the pro, the expert, and always remember that. Now, as you're going about your literature review, your research, everything, I cannot emphasize enough whatever style that your university is using, you better know it back and forth. Like we use the APA style. That's what we use at Drexel. And everything that you do has to be an APA style. Everything from the start to the finish. So don't start your research work sloppy and don't keep track of where you got your information from. And in the format that they're going to require it. So always know where you got your information from, and you can prove it, because that becomes part of your bibliography. And you don't want to have to go, I thought I put it somewhere, I don't remember what it was. It was so important. As you go along, document, and all writing, remember, it's going to be in APA style. Okay, that's what we did at Drexel. Don't forget it, because you will regret it later on if you don't pay attention to this. You can't get through your dissertation work without using the style that your university has told you to use. Okay. Now, so chapter 2 is all about what's already out there, and then from there you kind of develop what you're going to be looking for, and kind of a framework for your own research. Now, the next chapter is your methodology. How are you going to collect this information? How are you going to get your questions answered? What strategy you're going to use to get your questions answered? So basically, you have quantitative. You use a bunch of numbers to prove, to either to get your questions answered. I'm not saying not to prove, because this is not a scientific question. It's, there's no outcome that's been determined. Or you can do qualitative, which is what my study was, which I don't have a problem with interviews, but I had hoped that I could have made it into more of a quantitative, which would have been, if I had been able to do parenting education, I could have compared like the behavior of the kids before and after the kids went through parenting education, through the process. I would have had some numbers to work with. But with this, decided that my methodology would be qualitative. And since it was about parenting, then I decided maybe I would look at success stories of people who are above the average, their income is above the average in the state of Maryland, and blah, 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 blah. And I want to look at some success stories. What did their parents do? Okay, so that's what that was my methodology. I had to develop all of my questions. I had to justify my questions, and all of this you do before you even think about going out and asking anyone anything. Keep in mind, you can't use prior research. Everything has to be freshly done. Okay, it's your research, because when you or in and it's either chapter 4, you have to have a schedule. So you can't say, well, I started this 10 years ago. No. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, keep that in mind. It has to be fresh research, your research. Okay, that you're starting. You have your own questions that you developed, your own database that you're working from, your own framework, your own definitions, your own everything that you're working from. And so you go ahead and you develop, that. So qualitative, quantitative, you could do a little bit of both. And like most studies, I think they said it was both. All that you get in your coursework. Okay, you learn and you practice and study all these different approaches to your work. So you're not a stranger, and I mean all kinds of books and things you have to invest in for this. But that's you're a student. You're a student. So ethnography, for example, I found impractical for me because normally that involves a long-term study. Studying people may involve me living with the people. I mean, staying there. So, and it was one more step in my mind. I get back to it, but you learn all of that, and you learn the differences, and you study the differences before you make your own decision about your own methodology to get your questions answered. And then the next chapter is all about your data. You go out. So now these first three chapters are done with your cohort. Y'all working together. You're all on the same timeline. And then when it comes time to start doing your interviews or your data collection, that's when things start to break out. Okay, some people had even a difficult time even trying to get a topic approved. I mean, after they got it, it wasn't accepted. Oh, yes, my goodness. It was around this time going into chapter 5 writing, after I've done my data collection and I've analyzed my data, and it's time to actually put it all together and write my dissertation. But at this point in time, you will be appointed a committee, dissertation committee, normally consisting of your program chair, someone else from the university that may or may not be in your same department. And then you get to select. In my case, we had 3 people. And then the last person, the third person, I got to choose. Choose wisely, because you want someone who's going to agree with your dissertation no matter what. I don't care if it's the worst they've ever read. They're still going to vote yes. So you need a good friend, someone that's trusted, and someone's going to fight for you. And I say that because right at the time when I got to the very end, it was time to actually do my writing that started that September through December. And I had a deadline that I knew if I missed it, I would not graduate. I couldn't finish my dissertation that term. So I turned in a paper that I knew that was so far beneath my standards, but I had to do it. But I hated to do it because I knew that 2 people that had not seen my work before would be judging me off my work. When my department chair, of course, has seen my work, has been one of my professors. Not my department chair, but my the person who had been appointed to chair my committee had also been one of my professors. And when I first entered Drexel, he had been the chair of the program. And then along the way, they brought in a new chair, but he still remained on as a professor. So he was appointed my chair. I I don't know how they selected the other person, and then my person. I called someone that I had gone through graduate school with to earn my MBA, and we had done some coursework together, and we had been supportive of each other, and he knew certainly what I was capable of, and I had worked at UMES and as well. So, but he knew my work, and I knew that uh, he would stand for me. I didn't have to be in the room to trust what he's going to say about me. So, but all this is important. So, entering into my writing my dissertation, I had my committee, and I submitted this poorly written draft. And boy, true to form, it was slammed. Okay, now keep in mind, by this time I've gone out, I've conducted my interviews, and I did my interviews. Excuse me, it's a very important part of this I missed. Before you can do one thing, you have to get approval by an institutional review board, because you're going to be going outside the university, talking to people outside the university, and they have to approve your research before you can even do one thing. That's also part of that's not a class. You just have to know that you got to do that. It's part of I think it's part of a class actually, but you got to submit it. And before you can move forward with anything, it has to be approved by the university. And they need to know, they have forms for that have to be completed. And depending on which field you're in, they have different requirements. And because mine did not involve any medication or changing anybody's injecting anything or anything like that. It was just conversation. It was my standards were not that stringent that I had to have approval for. But you're going to have that. So as a matter of fact, I had that approval in January, the year before I finished. So that would have it in January of 2014, and I completed my dissertation work, was approved, defended it successfully in December of 2014. So keep that in mind. That it has to be that far out, and all that you get in your classwork and your professors will let you know. But don't think none of this stuff is important, because it is. You won't get finished. So when they say it's due, it's due. All right. So you develop your own schedule, your own calendar, all that is met with approval before you even go out. They want to know that you have thought this thing through thoroughly, and you know what you're going to be doing. Your survey instruments, you just can't, nothing will be done haphazardly. So you go out, you do all this, and you write it up, and then you got, you got your data collection, your analysis of all your data, and then chapter 5, of course, you wrap it all up and your findings and anything else you want to say about it, future research that you might recommend, any shortcomings in your own research that may have impacted your findings. And by the time you're finished with all of that, and you will have, then you go defend that. You do a presentation about your work, about your findings, and to your committee. Now, along the way, started writing my dissertation in September, and I told you I already turned in a really low quality work based on my own standards in that September. And even with that, so the person that knew nothing about me was just crucified me. Now, one of the things I'm going to tell you now, my professor said, you are the expert of your own research. Don't let anybody, bully you about your own research. You know it better than anybody else. Don't anybody else telling you around about your own research. And I remembered that because one person that came, not the other professor, she was trying to have me start all over again. Like, go back to my chapter 3. And I said, oh, no, 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 no. I did this exactly like my professor said. And it's been approved. You get, you don't come in and over them. I ignored it. So when I just ignored her comments. Okay, now ignored in terms of changing. And what I had to do, I had to go back and I had to address them and explain why I wasn't going to do anything about them. Because this is my research. I'm not going to start all over again. That's not going to happen. So do your work. You're the expert. Okay. So we ended up, I think, with maybe with so the next draft, I took all the little stuff into consideration, of course, and then I made all those recommend changes, and so that, and then by this time, it was better. I mean, I had to fight for it because I had been. Let's talk about setbacks. And was everything perfect for me? No. During my second year. At the beginning of my second year, it was near the end of my first year, I lost someone who was very dear to me, had been my best man, and whatever, very, very nice person, died suddenly, heart attack. It just, I was crushed. That was in May, and I remember going to class and I was crying, and the professor talked to me about it and whatnot. So then that September, I lost one of my favorite first cousins that I had grown up with. She was like a big sister to me. And then that was in September. And then in January, I lost a first cousin that I had grown up with. And then come the April, I lost one of my favorite first cousins, suddenly went out and drowned. And that was a shock. And then I lost a niece, and they had their funerals. One of my favorite first cousins and my niece, who just given birth to a beautiful baby boy. Their funeral was on the same day. Then a month later, I buried the brother that had been right above me. I was raised with 5 boys, and this brother was right above me. Yes, I got behind in my work. I couldn't focus. So by this time, we had a new department chair, Black female. And what she did, she said, the course that I was unable to submit my work in on time, I was basically going to redo again next semester anyway. So she would base both grades off that. Anyway, so that's what happened. And because I got behind. I couldn't focus. I remember during that time also, had a class reunion in my high school, and I was really going to try to go. It was on a Friday night, and I never forget when my professor said something was due Saturday morning, and I had been late with other assignments because all this was on the same time, and I was, losing all these people, and that he was not going to give me an extension. So I had to do it that Friday night, which meant I couldn't go to my class reunion. Simple choice. I hated it, but it had to be done. So I gave up going to that class reunion that year. And then my last semester, my last term, I had been injured at work, and I was in horrendous pain. I mean, that last term, doing all that writing, yeah, I was on pain medication. I was on all kinds of medications just to get through it. But I knew that if I did not hang in there and push through, I don't know when I was going to finish. Plus, I was a country girl. I just thought that eventually I'd get better. All the pain would go away, all the anguish would go away, and everything would be fine. I never anticipated that I would be met with such resistance from my own self. So, uh, but I was determined. Now, so I had that episode with the third person that was appointed to my dissertation committee, and then I had a situation where I wasn't getting proper feedback like I thought, and I mean lack of proper feedback. If I'd allowed it to continue, I would still be right there now trying to figure out how to get my paper through, how to get my work done. Now, the reason I got through, that Black program director, when I showed her what was going on, she jumped in immediately. And that's how I got through it. She wasn't going to allow them to drag me over the coals, drag my feet over years and years and years. No. So there's some politics involved. Don't think just because you get to the end that you've done. Because you've got to get your dissertation approved. You got it. And your department and your committee chair, I mean, that's the most important person you have to deal with. So if there's any conflict there, it's going to be a problem. You can ask. I know one of my classmates figured out later on, early on, that she was not going to get along with her committee chair, and she asked for a change. So you got to know that right away, because if you ask for it when you're too far into it, it may put you back a term, a semester. So keep all those things in mind. But you can't choose your committee chair. But if you know it's not going to work out early on, ask for a change. That's all part of what the university has to do for you as a student and as a doctoral candidate. So do all of this, get your writing done, that gets approved. And then it's time to take this writing, these all 5 chapters, and defend your research. What that means, you go before your committee, you give a presentation. They have the right to ask you any question that they want to ask you about your research. You are the expert. You are the expert. Okay, you are the expert. So know your research back and forth and anticipate what kind of questions they may have, such as what's next. And that same day, they'll tell you if you successfully defend it, and they will sign off on it. And then it goes back to the review board for sign off or something. I forget. It's been a while since that process, and really you're finished. So technically, I defended my dissertation, I think on December the 7th of 2014, and I successfully defended it. And I became, you don't become, become doctor. I think it's that final sign off, I think, by IRB before you can actually become Dr. Jacqueline Banks, But in terms of finishing everything to become a doctor, that was done. And that's what my sign off date is, December 2014, from when I completed my dissertation. After that, whatever work is required to IRB to also get it published as a follow-up to all of that. That's a process to all of that, to have your work published, all of that. And you get all those instructions. And you want to walk the stage, be prepared to spend $1,000 for your outfit. When I graduated, I was so dead broke from not having income for 2 years that I couldn't even afford my doctoral regalia. But guess what I'm going to do for myself? I'm going to order it, and I'm going to take a picture, and I'm going to let you know that this is me, Dr. Jackie B, in full Drexel University Doctor of Education regalia. So now I'm going to take a pause, and I'm going to see if there are any questions, and I'm going to wrap. This is my part. I'm wrapping up, and then we'll prepare for part 2. All right. Thank you.